Alright, this first piece is called Older Women. He was a young boy, age of 15, just coming out of middle school, new to the high school scene. And just like most teens, he's naive and still has a lot to learn. That's why when it comes to love, he was possessed with the "she'll be my wife" curse. One day he signed up for a hip-hop class, didn't know what to expect. He's been dancing for a few years, he's probably the best. He walks into the studio, he sees a few boys and girls his age, all amateurs, he saw nothing interesting. A few minutes later, the dance instructor came, and that's when his eyes started lingering. She's probably the age of 19, he was mesmerized by this beautiful human being. She was a young Asian woman with wavy dark brown hair and rosy cheeks. He loved Asian girls, in fact he had yellow fever. He was quite a keeper. He wanted to be the only one to keep her. As the class began, she introduced herself. Her name was Nikki. It was a name you wouldn't mind saying 1,000 times. When they made formations, it was obvious he was picky to where he wanted to be in line. He wanted to be close to her. He wanted to talk to her and close the distance, but he couldn't. He was just a student and she was the teacher. It didn't matter because he was hypnotized by her moves. He watched her for sure after that, and after classes he had to stay in the studio because his parents worked overtime, but he didn't mind. He considered it an opportunity of a lifetime. He got to know Nikki in those half-hour after-class sessions. They would talk about their days, get to know each other more and more. They even had the same favorite snack, chocolate s'mores. He was lost in his world, but found in hers. He was thinking about her 24/7. It was pretty absurd. Every time he would come to dance class, he brought her a cupcake and said a few cute words. It was her smile that made her day for sure. But he was still a kid and he had a lot to learn. It wasn't until the next week when he found out about this "you'll be my wife" curse. This week he brought 2 cupcakes instead of Uno. Of course it made her smile as usual. He stayed after class again and they talked about the daily. Being able to hang out with her drove him crazy. He was overdosed with infatuation, his dreams were filled with dirty temptations, and just when he was going to confess his love, he saw the studio door open up. A young man almost the same age as Nikki came in. The man went up to her, kissed her on the lips, and brought her chocolate s'mores with potato chips. The young boy of 14 was tripping squares as a cloud of confusion filled his mind. He was convinced that there was no solutions and he was just wasting his time. He stormed out the studio, called himself a Julio, walked to the nearest McDonald's and waited for his mom. His thoughts of Nikki made it hard for him to keep calm. He couldn't bear her anymore and that night terrors in the day. Once a young, full-of-life teen now had nothing to say. It's like his body was going through the Great Depression, but after a few days, he finally learned his lesson. He quit the dance class and was back to his daily schedule, living the high school life without being resentful. He respected the past, but had no regrets. But still, it was something he'll never forget. Memories don't leave the brain, they were just hidden. Heart pain will never fade, but it can never be forgiven. He was just another teen that found himself lovesick. So the next time he's going to fall for another woman, he'll remember not to trip. Thank you.